There's lots of things that happen
Sure.
to us that we perceive as bad. Everything is happening for you, not to you. If that is the attitude that you take towards life, you cannot lose. If you use those opportunities, you will get more. It's that simple. If you don't, the tap will shut off and you must say yes. And it will require a lot of courage because a lot of them will be very uncomfortable. You must say yes. Life is happening for you, not to you. If that is the attitude that you take towards life, you cannot lose.
Freedom doesn't happen by accident, it's built. Welcome to Freedom by Design, where we explore what it really takes to create more freedom in your life, your business, and your relationships. We're Josh and Paula Kirpin, and this is intentional living done right.
Okay, welcome back to our Freedom by Design podcast. We are going to talk today about the core 4 principles for breakthrough. And I really truly believe that these 4 principles are life-changing for literally anybody, no matter the age and where you're at in life. And Josh is going to talk a little bit about what these 4 principles are and kind of how you can navigate figuring out what your thought process is around each of these 4 things and how we can work to maybe change your ideas around them. So why don't you get started, Josh, by telling us what the core 4 principles are, and then you can dive into the first one maybe in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, so you call them principles. They're really just ideas that will help you to live a better life. Now, I'm really like taking more complex ideas and distilling them down into something that we can understand and use. Humans can focus on 4 things at a time. I like to get things in 3s. That's in my paradigm. It's a belief that I've got, but I've got this distilled down to 4 ideas that you could really focus on. And I think that one of these ideas, to each of these ideas, there's a negative and a positive pole. And in each of these ideas, I think that most people are probably limited by one of these ideas, at least. So when we talk about in the program with clients, we talk about what belief or idea would I want to change first that is going to have the biggest impact on my life. A keystone habit, a keystone idea. What would you change first? And I think that if you dig deep enough, most people will come to one of these ideas and recognize them as being something that is holding them back. That if you change this one idea, it would have a trickle-down effect and maybe change 4 or 8 or 12 habits. Because a lot of people don't want to just focus on one habit at a time.
Right.
Like if you want to change an eating habit, you just focus on one at a time. Well, I think that you take most habits, most things that are producing a result in your life that you don't like, and you dig deep enough, you will probably be able to tie it back to one of these core 4 ideas. So the first one is worthiness, the idea that you are worthy. I think this holds a lot of people back, something that I definitely struggled with when I looked at everything that I had in life. I'd achieved the family, some financial freedom. I had a business that I loved working in, and I just had really everything that I could imagine. And I looked around me at people that didn't have what I had a lot less than what I had in some cases, and good people, hardworking people. They really care and they're good. Well, why was that? And that can lead you to these feelings of not being worthy. And if you don't feel worthy of what you currently have, you certainly aren't going to want to strive for more. Striving for more and the pursuit of more is really how we define success, the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Well, what is worthy of you? And you need to get really deep and understand that you are worthy of anything that you can imagine.
Yeah, and I think the term worthy is kind of a buzzword that's thrown around nowadays with all the motivational speaking and, the inspirational quotes and all the things like you are worthy, you're speaking affirmations into yourself. But really, what does that mean? Like you said, going down deep enough into the core of, what you define your worth by and, how you can describe your worth in terms of, lots of people in terms of what they do, who is it that you are, and, figuring out kind of what worthy means to you and why you describe yourself as being worthy of something or not worthy of something, which you can kind of speak to that a little bit, you talked about how you can feel, you can literally do anything and you are worthy of everything. But how does somebody kind of bridge that gap between knowing that that's the case, but actually feeling that to their core?
Yeah. So you, same as what you would do with any idea that you would investigate, is you would look at where that idea came from and what parts of that idea are truth and what parts of it are you're just telling yourself a story. But to me, when I dig into this, it's like I'm worthy. Okay, why is that? Well, I'm God's highest form of creation. I believe that. There's something special about humans, our consciousness, our awareness, our ability to understand and choose. We use that for negative and for positive.
Yeah.
The negative gets a lot of headlines, so I think that a lot of people have a hard time looking at us as God's highest form of creation and all the chaos that humans create, but we've also created everything great. So the idea that we are God's highest form of creation leads me directly, basically, to the idea that we're worthy of anything that we can imagine, because God has also given us an imagination. I follow that a little bit deeper I believe that our purpose on earth is to continuously create and grow. And in that process, we need to be pursuing something more in order to, grow into something more, create more. So if that is our purpose, that's what we're put here for, then it would seem to me that it would be logical that the opportunity would be available for us to grow towards. Anything that we can imagine growing towards, we must then be worthy of, right? So it's just sort of a bit of a philosophical process of asking enough questions to get down to this core idea that, yes, we are worthy of anything we can imagine because we are God's highest form of creation and we are put here to create in God's image. And if that is the case, then this must be true, that we are worthy of anything that we can imagine.
Right. And I think nowadays we tie our worth to something external outside of ourselves, I guess, instead of what is fulfilling us internally, and having that deep conversation, like you said, about, what is your worth, and what is your true self. And I think just so much of society nowadays is tying our worth and our identity to some sort of external validation or external incentive or external, accomplishment, success, whatever that looks like. And it's really more about becoming true to who you are and looking inwards to be able to figure out what that self-worth is in terms of yourself, as opposed to somebody else's opinion of what your worth may or may not be.
Yeah, I mean, we look at for validation outside of us all over the place all the time. And
Constantly.
it just,
Yeah.
there's no use in it. But I mean, you have to go look inside, you have to know yourself,
Mhm.
right? I mean, that's where a lot of this journey in our program and for me personally and us personally has started, is this process of really getting to know yourself and who you are. And once you understand that and come to some belief on truth on that, then you can start asking these questions and taking an idea or question and putting it up against that truth, and then coming to some conclusions. So for me, in the process of getting to know who I am and why I'm here, and that I am a creative child of God here to create and grow. When I put these ideas up against that, the idea, am I worthy, up against that truth, it just, the answer is, then that seems to be true, that I am worthy of anything that I can.
Yeah, I love that. So this ties into the second principle or pillar or concept, is identity. And I kind of touched on that a little bit about how we sort of navigate our identity based on what it is that we do, who we are in society, the titles, the letters behind our names, all those things is kind of how we define ourselves often. And it kind of comes back to your self identity, and figuring that out in who you are, truly to your core. So can you speak to the importance of that self identity and discovering that to be able to move and change the results in your life, I guess, if you can navigate that thought?
When you come to realize who you are and what you are, and that you are not really anything that's
Hmm.
outside of you or the results that you produce, you start to realize that you're kind of like a chameleon. Like, you can become whatever you want to become,
Right.
whenever you want to become it. And when we tie ourselves to maybe what we do, or some results that we produce, or what we do for work or our family, then we're locked into this identity. And then, so idea number two is You need to act as if. You need to act as if you are the person that you want to become, that has the things that you have, that you are worthy of. You need to act as if you are the person that is worthy of the things that you want. When we get tied up in a false sense of identity, which is this identity based on all of our beliefs that we've accepted that are just temporary, and we've accepted them consciously or unconsciously, or you know that self identity is based on anything that's happening outside or around us. That is a false sense of identity, and that's very difficult to want to try and change that, or to understand that we would change that.
Mhm.
But when you come to understand that all those things are really just temporary, and we consciously or unconsciously chosen them, then you start recognizing that you can consciously choose to go in any different direction. Now, that's a little bit tricky because people say you need to be true to yourself, right? You don't need to act like anybody else says you need to act. Be true to yourself. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Most people don't know, right? So what we talk about a lot is creating that next version of you. You do not need to become another person. You
Right.
are you. It's important to understand that you have perfection inside of you. You're just trying to express more and more of it as time goes on.
Mhm.
You do not need to become another person, nor can you. Everybody else is taken, right? So it makes no sense to try and be somebody else. You need to be the best version of you. So the next version of you is, let's say it's version 1.1. So you need to identify what version 1.1 of you looks like. And you would maybe look at a bunch of people that have got the things that you want and take some traits from all of them and make this composite that would be this next version of you. And then you start acting as that person. But you might resist that if you have the idea that I don't want to act as somebody that I'm not. I'm going to be me. I'm going to be who I am.
Mhm.
But that is all based on this idea that who you think you are is based on these external circumstances and these old ideas that you've got. So, yeah, it's sort of a circular argument. But idea number two of the core four is that you do need to understand that you're worthy, and then act as if you are worthy of the things that you want.
Mhm. Yeah, we had an interesting conversation with our oldest, Casey. He's 12, and we were talking about his identity because he is a very passionate baseball player. He's got very big goals for the ideal that he's chasing. And I really wanted to talk to him a little bit about his identity and how he defines himself, because it's so easy to define yourself by things that you do or that you're good at, right? And he has received praise for being a really good baseball player, right? And I want to make sure that my kids know that I don't love them because they are good at playing baseball, or because they're good in school, or because they ride horses well, or whatever it is that they choose to do, or the passions that they choose to pursue. It is because of who they are, and that they are trying to grow into that next version of themselves by continually striving to grow and pushing to be the best version, and to be able to have that true identity of that growth, and that we love them because of who they are, not because of what they do.
Not because of what they do. That's anytime you tie your worth into anything external, you're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
If you're a parent and you tie your worth into your kids and their success, that is a disaster for
Yeah.
you and your kids. Now you're putting that responsibility on them.
If you've been listening to this podcast, you already know something. You're built for more. The 100X Breakthrough Program is built for leaders, business owners, and growth-driven individuals who are ready to stop playing at the edge of their potential and start operating at a completely different level. If you know you're capable of more, but you're still stuck, this is your next step. Let's schedule an instant impact coaching session and see if the 100X Breakthrough Program is the right fit for you. Go to kznsolutions.ca. That's kznsolutions.ca.
Yeah, that was a really good conversation to
Mhm.
have with him, because it was clear that he was starting to identify himself as a baseball player.
Right.
And if he wasn't going to be a baseball player, he'd be a coach or something else. But it's important to understand that, we love him just for who he is. And when somebody asks me who I am, my response is I am. And that's it. Full
Yeah.
stop. There is nothing beyond that. It's just that I am. I wrote a blog post on it maybe about a year ago. You can go to the website and check out that blog post. It's a quick read, but it really summarizes it. And that's it. I am.
It's an interesting thing to think of, and kind of a thought point for you guys to consider, is to answer that question. Who are you? Who am I? And not I encourage you not to write down the things that you do or the roles that you have. And I feel like as women, especially, mothers get tied up in being a mother. Like, I am a mother to my kids. That's how I would define myself, right? And so to me, I would challenge and push back on that, because that is a role that you have, and it's an incredibly important one. But it is doesn't define who you are as an individual. It is part of your story, but not the definition of who you are and your only personal contribution to this world, right? And that's really what the conversation with Casey, where that led, was that we don't want him to be able to tie himself to whatever it is that your passion is. And we had a great conversation with him, because I feel like he, like you said, was defining himself by what he was doing. But it's really important to be able to differentiate the two of those. And as parents, you see that all the time, where parents are just even more invested in what their kids are doing and their accomplishments than the kids are sometimes. So it's a really great conversation, talking point to have with your kids too. So this moves into the third spot, which is attitude, which is kind of, again, these are all sort of interconnected. But let's talk a little bit about attitude and how the attitude that you have in your day-to-day life affects literally everything that you do.
So the idea behind number 3 in the core 4 is that life is happening for you, not to you.
Right.
And I think everybody can resonate with this. Something happens to you that you don't like. You get a parking ticket. You get a flat tire. You hit a red light. These are all very traffic oriented. That's interesting. Or, you get a health scare, or there's lots of things that happen to us that we perceive as bad. Everything is happening for you, not to you. If that is the attitude that you take towards life, you cannot lose, period. I mean, you can't possibly be beat. And that's just a choice to choose that, right? You can choose, that statement can go one of two ways. Everything is happening to me, or everything is happening for me. You get to choose. If you choose that everything is happening for you, then everything will work out for you. And it might be bumpy and bloody and a tough road, but it will work out for you. And that is, like, I mean, these are all incredibly important. That's why they are the core 4. But without that, life is just going to be miserable. That's all there is to it.
It literally frames every single situation that you find yourself in. And to me, the biggest key there is the fact that we can accept or reject whatever thought comes into our mind, right? So if our attitude is in that this is happening for me, then I can choose the positive version of that thought versus entertaining the negative. I can kick that out, right? You have the choice to be able to do that. Whichever one you internalize is the one that you're going to keep. So you can accept or reject those thoughts. And to me, I view it as like a redirection. And I always try and find, a positive that has happened from whatever experience that I view to be negative, So, and it's hard. Like, I mean, you have to work at that sometimes. It's a lot easier to go to the negative. And I think because our society nowadays tends to shift to the negative, it's easy to get wrapped up
But
in that.
there's more to it than that, because a lot of people will say, just find the positive in every negative. It might not be there yet.
Yeah, exactly.
So you might not be able to find it, right? And that's where it is very useful to take, you could start writing down every situation in your life that you didn't like it and you maybe perceived it as negative, and then go back and review that in a year or 5 or 10 and see what the outcome of that situation was.
Right.
Garth Brooks wrote that song called Unanswered Prayers, right? That's a great example. It's a story about this exact thing, right? Where in the moment you think that it's a disaster and it works out perfectly in life. But when you're in that moment of that negative thing happening to you, or perceived negative thing happening to you, and you automatically go to try and find the positive, it may not be there yet.
Yeah.
So can be a discouraging way to go about it. So the redirection isn't necessarily to find the positive. It's to the idea that this is happening for you. And exactly how it's happening for you will be revealed in time, but you just have to trust that everything is happening for you. Core idea number 3.
I think it's the redirection to being open-minded to accept or visualize what that positive could be. Like you said, down the road, 2, 5, 10 years from now. It doesn't necessarily have to happen right now, but that's the redirection away from the negative, I guess, is what I meant there.
Yes, but I mean, I think it is important to know exactly where you're redirecting to, because if you're just trying to go to find this positive outcome when you've just got something that, that most people perceive as awful, the positive just might not be there yet. It is the belief that it is happening for you that will lead to something good coming out of it in time.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Love that. So that brings us to our fourth step, which is action. And something that a lot of people don't take enough of. Speak to how action kind of ties all these three together, and sort of what your thoughts are on action.
You don't have to worry about the good thing about idea number 4 is you don't have to worry about executing action if you don't do the other three, because opportunities aren't going to come to you.
Mhm.
If you don't believe you're
Love
worthy
that.
and you don't act as if the person that's worthy, and you don't view things as working out for you, then you're not going to get the opportunities. But when you believe you're worthy and know what you want, and you start, acting as the person that has that, these opportunities and ideas will start coming to you. And it is, there's no other way to describe it other than it is basically magical. When they come, it will be quite obvious, and you must say yes. And it will require a lot of courage, because a lot of them will be very uncomfortable. You must say yes. If you don't, you won't get another opportunity. The universe sends energy to where it's needed, and it will be used. It does not want to sit and do nothing. Energy moves. It wants
Mhm.
to be used and expand. If you use those opportunities and put them to use, you will get more. It's that simple. If you don't, the tap will shut off, and the opportunities will stop coming to you, and you'll look back 5 years down the road and wonder why you're in a rut. It's because you said no to this one.
Right.
Maybe it was a phone call. Maybe, whatever that thing is that's scaring the hell out of you is probably the thing you need to go do right now. So it takes courage, and it takes action, and it takes saying yes to the opportunities that align with what you want. Now, some people say yes to everything
Mhm.
because they don't know what they want exactly, and they're not clear enough on that. So they say yes, and that ends up diverting their focus. That's not what we're talking about.
Yeah.
We're talking about knowing what you want. When you know what you want, you know the things that are aligned with that. You get an opportunity comes, you just say, is this aligned with what I want? Yes, it is. Then I must say yes. It's that simple. The decision is already made for you.
Mhm.
And we have to make like a bazillion decisions in a day. Each one of them takes some willpower to make them.
Mhm.
When you have made a committed decision, the decision's already made for you. Like when you committed to pursuing that goal, you already committed to saying yes to this opportunity. You're just waiting for the opportunity.
Mm.
You've already said yes to it. So you just have to take action.
And that's, I think the piece of having that goal and that worthy ideal that we talked about a couple episodes ago. You have to know where you're going. Because to me, if you have these opportunities are coming to you, and like you said, you can say yes to all of them. Some people are serial yes sayers, they do all the things. But if you don't know where it is that you're going, it's hard to know what to say yes or no to. And that's part of the thing that we talked about is it became easier for us to say no to things because we knew the direction we were going. So even though it was still uncomfortable, and I'm not saying that it makes it easy, but you can take action towards the pursuit of that because you know the direction that you're going.
Yeah. So it's like we're right now, we're at our place in Texas. We're just west of Dallas, Texas. And let's say we know we want to go to Phoenix, Arizona. Okay. And this bus shows up at our place, and it's a beautiful bus, and it's nice. It's like a motorhome, and we could get on it and we could ride and have a nice time, and everything's paid for. There's free food, and it's going to be really nice. And the bus driver says, yep, we're headed to New Orleans. Decision's made.
Yeah.
We don't get on that bus. We're not going. There's a scene in Dumb and Dumber that kind of alludes to that a little bit at the very end of that, where the bus of the
Well, the swimsuit
the
model
swimsuit
bus.
models comes
Yeah.
up, and they think that the bus isn't going where they want to go, but it looks like this great opportunity. But maybe, and they look like idiots,
Yeah.
but maybe that bus isn't what the bus that they needed to be on, even though it looked like a lot of fun. But yeah, when you know where you're going, the decision's already made for you. You must take action. Core idea number 4.
Yeah, and I love that all four of those are just so tied together, and with the worthy ideal and kind of where you know you're going, to be able to work on all four of these things are truly life-changing. And like we talked about earlier today, just being able to instill these into our kids, to be able to actually take a look at these things from an early age and be able to, have that self-worth and figure out their identity, so that when they go out into the world, they have these like core 4 principles and beliefs within themselves, so they can go and accomplish whatever it is that goal is that they want. So really, really good stuff.
Yeah. So to review, the core 4 ideas is that number 1, you are worthy. of anything you can imagine. Number two, you need to act as if you are worthy and pursuing what you want, right? Number three is that life is happening for you, not to you. It might take some time to see the results, but life is happening for you, not to you. And number four is you must take action, courageous action, and say yes to opportunities that come your way. Those are the four ideas. Almost always, when I have a call with a client or a discovery call with somebody who's interested, in 30 minutes, we'll identify one of those core 4 ideas that's holding them back, and then we can go to work on fixing that. So if anybody's unsure of what might be holding them back, then just go to the website and book a call, kznsolutions.ca, book a call. It's free. In half an hour, we'll be able to give you a good idea on which one of those core 4 ideas might be holding you back, and then what you can do to overcome that.
Love that. Thank you so much.
Good. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks for joining us on Life by Design. God bless. See you next time.
We appreciate you being part of Freedom by Design. If this conversation added value, help us spread the love. Take a second to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs it. The more intentional we become, the more freedom we create in our homes, our work, and our future. We'll see you next time. God bless.